What's up, guys? So I am going to be in the garden today, and I decided that maybe I should do a little garden tour. It is the month of August. The last garden tour I did was in July. The garden is in transition right now to switch out to fall crops. So I've been cleaning out the garden, doing all the things to get it ready for fall planting. I've also planted a second crop of some things, but I decided while I'm out here and going to be working in the garden that I might as well just go around and show you guys what I've been up to. So off camera yesterday, I had my daughter collect all of my pots that I had sitting down the end of this rose, and all of the strawberries that were alive in some of them. Well, in all of them, I took and put them in my green stock, as well as, and then I watered them in. I didn't finish filling the top, which I'm going to do today, as well as some herbs. So I have rosemary here, I have sage here, and then down here I have an oregano. But the rest of the pockets are all filled with strawberry vines. The 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 towers filled. I still have 2 at the bottom. I have a couple more herbs that I can move. Like I have this oregano plant here, but I was thinking about putting it in ground. I'm not sure. I think this is thyme here. I have some mint. I think that's another oregano. I've already cleared out lots of bed with my kids' help. They cleared this trellis in a previous video. I did finish cleaning off this trellis yesterday. There were still some beans hanging. I didn't finish cleaning this side, but I did go ahead and plant. These are cucuzzi squashes here, and I'm going to finish taking off these bean plants here so that these cucuzzi squashes can grow up. We have some bell peppers and what are these called? I'm having a mind blank. I think these are pepperoncinis maybe, but a lot of them could be harvested here. Some tomato plants that I need to pull out. I need to pull out this tomato plant. Behind the trellis that I planted the cucuzzi, I have these squash plants that I'm going to pull out today and save the seeds from some. So I have, one of them was a zucchini that I let get really big, and then I had some yellow ones that I let get really big so I could save the seeds from them. So then I'll be pulling out these plants. I have this big sweet potato patch right here that's taking over. I actually have to go inside and get my garden shears because as I'm walking around I see stuff that needs to come out and I want to just go ahead and get it out. As I just removed those squash plants, I did see lots of vine borer action in the stem of them. They were open and brittle and dying, and you can see where they had healed over and started shooting off new vines that were not affected by the vine borer. Since I'm standing right here, I'm also going to go ahead and pick all of these peppers off before I go ahead and move to another area. I was just here picking these peppers and I want to see if I can find it again. I just saw a hornworm on this pepper plant. And I had saw some peppers that looked topped off. Let me show you. Right here with all the leaves, and I'm like, I don't remember doing that. There's actually eggs right there on this plant. Anyway, let me show you the squash. That's gross. It's right there. Super a baby. Super tiny. Makes me wonder what else, if there's any big ones over here. My kids are finished with school, but they're eating lunch right now. So I asked them to come out here and help me because it is supposed to rain in a little bit and I want to get as much done as possible before the rain comes. So what I did in this bed is just go ahead and use my pruners to cut at the base these bush bean plants that were dying and looking raggedy, and I left them there. I like to cut the roots and leave them in the ground because the roots is what have the nodes that produces the nitrogen in the soil if you leave the roots in the ground. So that's what I did, and I left them right there. I also have a rabbit, and we've been refeeding the rabbit from the garden, and rabbits could eat bush bean or pole bean leaves, but not the beans. And so we've been feeding our rabbit the bean leaves, okra leaves, as well as basil, rosemary. I already have a few okra in there. I think the okras I planted, I know one was Texas Hill Country. I planted a bush variety and then another variety, but I don't remember what it was. I did pick off the green tomatoes. That one's not good. Some of them had already started to turn, some of them is already blushing, so they'll continue to ripen. Previously picked off a bunch of green tomatoes a few days ago off of some plants that I was pruning, and I saw a recipe where you could pickle them, and it just sounds delicious, so maybe I might pickle all of these green tomatoes. Moving on, this bed has some fungus disease on the zinnia leaves, but as you can see, it's still thriving. This whole bed was planted with dwarf zinnias. As you can see, some of them are not so dwarf. I am 5'4", and this is right at my face, so it's probably close to 5 feet. But I had my daughters plant this bed, and although a lot of them are going to seed, it's still adding a pop of color to the garden. Right in this bed, I replanted some cucumbers, so I have salt and pepper cucumbers right here. And on this side, I have what does it say, miniature white cucumber right here. I didn't pull out this watermelon because it still looked pretty healthy. It has a watermelon growing on it. And then on the opposite side in the corner of the bed, it also has a watermelon vine. I didn't see any watermelon starting to produce yet, but I left it in here. This bed is my spicy pepper bed, and I can see that there are some peppers in here. Oh, there's a bee. There are some peppers in here that are ready, so I think these are serrano chili peppers right here. So I'll pick these. These are, I think they're called pequeño, maybe? Yellow pequillo. And when they turn this color orange, they are ready, but as you can see, there's lots of ones that are green. So I'm just gonna go ahead and harvest all of these. I have some, let's see, Santa Fe Grandes in here. What I've been doing with these spicy peppers is dehydrating them in the dehydrator and then grinding it in my Vitamix to make spicy pepper blend. I think that's all of the spicy peppers for now. There are some smaller ones that I'm leaving. I said this whole bed was spicy peppers, but I forgot this side had basils in it. I think like 12 different types of basils. And if I'm not mistaken, there was even a habanero over here. Yep. And in the corner was summer savory. That's being overtaken by the basil. I'm letting the basil go to seed so I can save seeds from it. This is probably I think this is the third time that I picked peppers off of harvested peppers off of that spicy pepper bed. And I'll do the same thing. I'll just cut them in half, take out the seeds, or have one of my kids do it and then put in the dehydrator and grind it up. I've also done that to some peppers that are mild or not as spicy, and then just made a mix so that we don't have super spicy, because my family rarely eats spicy foods. I'm gonna set that stuff right there and go inside and wash my hands. As I was just picking, I didn't want to stop and go inside and get gloves because those were spicy peppers and the oils can get on your hands, and if you rub anything else, forget about it. But I'm so glad to have these gloves on, which I got from Farmers Defense, as well as this hat, because the last 2 times that I was in the garden cleaning up, my arms were so itchy pulling out plants at the end of the day. I had to wash, take a shower, my arms are super itchy. So I'm very glad to be harvesting with my new gloves. If you're interested in a pair, I'll definitely leave the link in the description box. My kids have finished eating, so they are outside helping me now. Maya is taking all of the plants that I've pulled out. We'll bring those over to our chickens, and they will be happy to peck at any bad fruit that was on there, which is nice. So this cross bed used to be filled with like 350 strawberries, but a lot of them died. I used to have a borage plant in the corners, and it's coming back. It went to seed, and now it's coming back, but it is filled with weeds. So I have my son out here helping me to weed this bed. I have a watermelon plant. It was supposed to be a dwarf one that only got to 3-foot vines, but it's actually taking over every which way. There's a watermelon over there. There's another 2 watermelons coming this way. So this bed right here, this is my log raised bed. I planted all sweet peppers in this bed, and in the front I planted some determinate tomatoes that I still need to get in here and pull out, and in the front is marigolds. I want to be able to use this trellis again, but as you can see, I would probably have to pull out the marigolds because they would not get any sun, because they are too small to compete with how big the marigolds are, as well as the peppers on this side. Since we're up here, I'm gonna have my daughter Nehemiah start picking the peppers that are up here. I don't remember what peppers are in here. I just know that they were all sweet because I planted all my sweet peppers in the same tray. I do know that there's shishitos in here because they look different than all the other peppers, and they're down here mostly. There are some bell peppers in here. This one has changed color. Then I have lots of these snacking peppers that are super tiny, like lunchbox peppers. This other log raised bed also has perennials. Well, not also, but it has perennials in it, perennial flowers, like echinacea, some lilies, and then I had more lilies, but I didn't know, and so I didn't plant them. So I actually planted them in this bed. But what I'm thinking about doing is taking the bulbs out of here and adding them to this bed so that this whole bed could just be a perennial bed. There's a hollyhock right here, and this bed was growing cantaloupes that I pulled out the other day. It has massive ant piles in here, so we'll have to do something about that. And this was my dwarf okra that got blown over in a windstorm, and if I pull all of that out and take the leaves out, this bed will be completely clear. This is the tray of sucker tomatoes that I took suckers off of and planted, and they're doing good. And this is the ones that I started from seed. And then right here we have more cucumbers that I need to plant, or actually squashes that I need to plant today. And in these beds, I didn't plant anything in them in the spring because they were the last 3 beds that I did. And what happened was we were cleaning out our duck brooder and chicken brooder, and so I just put all of their bedding in these 3 beds and then topped it with a little bit of compost. And so what I was doing was I put in store-bought pinto beans to see how they would sprout and how they would grow. And they seem to be growing good. There is a little yellowing in that section right there, but for the most part, all of the beans have popped up and are still green. Off camera yesterday, I added some more soil to this bed and this bed, as well as planted some cucumbers here. So that's a muncher, that's a lemon cucumber, and we had carrot seeds that decided to germinate because this was a carrot bed in the spring. And then this one, I planted the suyo long cucumber, and on the opposite side, there are zinnias that are looking a little spent. I remembered that I also have red burgundy okra. Here's another trellis that I cleaned off and added some cucumbers here. So there's a crystal apple cucumbers, and this is a bushy cucumber, so it's not going to get really high. But on this side, I still had a cantaloupe growing, and it's still actually looking pretty healthy and have cantaloupes on it. So I left it. I just trellised it up yesterday. The other day, I left this tomato plant because it still had lots of good tomatoes on it. And there's so many squash bugs on it now. Woohoo! So I'm gonna go ahead and pick the tomatoes that are good. This one, the tag says Matt's Wild Cherry. So I'll be sure to note that next year. Look at, oh my goodness. Here is another tomato plant that I left in that has just been kicking it. I believe this is called the egg tomato. At the base there is a ant pile, which I'm trying to avoid, but you can see lots of tomatoes that are ripening here, almost filling up our little bucket. What an unexpected surprise. This trellis will be one of the areas where I replant tomatoes. So in this bed on this side, it has sweet potatoes, and I'm pretty sure a watermelon is in there somewhere. And at the end of the beds, I showed how I planted sunflowers or okra, and this sunflower has been getting eaten. As you can see, it's missing, has lots of squash bugs in there. These, I already took out the rest of the mammoth sunflowers, but these few right here is still here. I'm gonna pull them down and give them to our goats. On the opposite side of the trellis, this is a Kajari melon. Right here, as you can see, it's been going that way. And then we planted some zinnias that have fell over on the opposite side of the bed. I think the last major bed that I haven't talked about yet is this in-ground bed. And we have basils in here. We have peppers at the front. What I did was plant basils in between tomatoes. So I had a basil, tomato, a basil, tomato, going all the way down. I still have tomato that I need to pull out from here. And I do need to trim back this basil. I see some peppers that I can harvest. And then when I ran out of basil, I planted marigolds in between tomatoes. And then I had one lonely zinnia, so I even planted a zinnia in here, which has grown really nicely. And I need to get this tomato out. You can definitely see how a hornworm has been in here because all the leaves going down have been eaten. I don't actually see a hornworm on here, just glancing, but definitely signs of hornworm damage. But it's fine, these tomato plants are ready to go. They're coming out. So in this area of the garden, I have my Forever Garden bed. If you're interested in one, I'll leave a link to the description box where you can get a discount code. And I put it as a 2x8 bed. It was sent 2 more, so I'm going to set them up right here in this area. This right now is holding all of my fruit trees. I did spray paint my bed. I also bought more spray paint to paint the next one yellow. Was it yellow? Or no, I think it was pink. And then maybe I'll paint one, spray paint one purple. My fruit trees, well, this is not their permanent home. Their actually permanent home is going to be over there with the ducks, where I already have some fruit trees planted, but we need to build the duck or the orchard fence to enable to keep the goats and the dogs out of there and protect my trees. So for now, they've just been sitting in the garden, but once it cools off, maybe in the next month, I would hope to have them moved on over. I think the most exciting thing right now is that my roses have begun to climb. These are a non-thorn Belinda's Blush rose, and they have begun to get big, and so happy to see them growing. So I think we pretty much have all of the beds cleared out that we need to in order to start replanting. I showed in my last video how I have all of my brassicas inside of my glass room, and they are doing really well. I have my tray filled with garden produce, and then these are the spicy peppers. I'm gonna sit that there until we're ready to leave. I think this is where I will say goodbye to you guys and end this garden tour. I have all of the beds I want cleared out. My kids are just getting out some last minute weeds, and I'm going to start on another project. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me as we walked around the garden, picked some produce, and just took a look around before we start replanting for fall.